We continue now at the top of Daf Vavam Beis in Mesechet Nedarim. This is Nedarim Daf 6b. The Gemara says, Boy Rav Papa. Rav Papa asks the following question: Yesh yad lekedushin olo? Do we say that there's yad if you say the partial phrase by kedushin? Is that going to be effective or not? The Mefarish says, Yesh yad lekedushin hecha de lo Mefarish mamish mikudeshes li. Let's say the person doesn't say the words mikudeshes li, you are mikudeshes to me. Ela biyad lekedushin kamekadesh lo ked kamefarish mi have yad lekedushin. He just says part of the phrase in order to be mekadesher. Is that going to be a yad for kedushin and mikudeshes, and it's a good kedushin? O ein yad lekedushin ve'ena mikudeshes, or is there no yad for kedushin and she will not be mikudeshes? Again, yesh yad lekedushin olo, and the Gemara says, hey chidami. What exactly is the case of Rav Papa's question? If the case is that he says to the woman, hare at mikudeshes li, he says to his wife, you are mikudeshes li, the full phrase, and then he says to her friend who's standing over there, and you also. So pshita, that's obvious that would work. Hainu kiddushin atzman, that actually is a regular standard kiddushin, it wouldn't even be a question. The Mefarish says, pshita kevan damar viat nami kiddushin atzmaninu, that is kiddushin. To be'osin kiddushin the kiddush lechaverta mekadesh lo. When he says va'at nami, you also, he's saying the exact same thing I said to her, I'm saying to you. Mekadesh lo nami v'chi agavna lo have a yad ela kiddushin gemurim ninu. That's not a yad, that's not like a partial phrase, that's actually a full kiddushin. So hainu kiddushin atzman, so that's not even a question. Ela kagon do amar lo leisha, rather the case is as follows. He says to a woman, hareat mekudeshes li, you're mekudeshes to me. V'yamar lo lechaverta viat, and then he says to her friend viat. So miya amrinan viat nami amar lo lechaverta v'tafsi ba kiddushin. Do we say that what he really means is viat nami, you also? That's what he's saying to her friend, and therefore there is a kiddushin lechaverta for the friend as well. O dilmor, maybe viat chazoi amar lo lechaverta. There's different translations of viat chazoi. We'll just translate it as maybe he's saying to her, and you're seeing what I'm doing. That's what he says to her friend. V'lo tafsi ba kiddushin bechaverta, and therefore there will not be a kiddushin for this other woman. That is the question in terms of whether there's a yad for kiddushin or not. And the Gemara says, "Umimi boy leila Rav Papa." Is this really a question for Rav Papa? V'hamido Amar le Rav Papa li Abaya. But from the fact that Rav Papa said to Abaya, "Misavar Shmuel yadayim shein mochichos havin yadayim." This was also talking about kiddushin, and Rav Papa said to Abaya, "Does Shmuel really hold yadayim shein mochichos is yadayim?" So when it comes to kiddushin, so mechalal desvir leila Rav Papa diyesh yad la kiddushin. That does imply that Rav Papa holds in general there's yad for kiddushin. The only question was by yadayim shein mochichos. In other words, Rav Papa said he was surprised, so to speak, that Shmuel said Yadayim Shein Mochichos works by Kiddushin. That implies there is in general, when it's not Yadayim Shein Mochichos, but when it's regular Yadayim Mochichos, that implies there is Yadayim for Kiddushin. And the Gemara answers, Chada migo mai desvir leila Shmuel amar leili Abaye. Rav Papa was saying one of the things that of what Shmuel holds he was saying to Abaye, but really Rav Papa himself would have been asking the same question regarding regular Yadayim Mochichos, not only Yadayim She'en Mochichos. For this line as well, Chada migo mai, there are other translations for that line, and some have different girsos. We will go with the girsa that we have in our Gemara. The Mefarish over here says, V'amar le Rav Papa li Abaye b'perakamet de kiddushin ba'alocha Maisa, Amar Shmuel Nasan la Kesef, Oshava Kesef, V'yomar la Hareat Mekudeshes, Hareat Mureses. So there's a case over there where Shmuel says this case, where you say this phrase, V'yomar le Rav Papa li Abaye, L'meimer desavar Shmuel, Yadayim Shein Mochichos Havin Yadayim. When Rav Papa heard what Shmuel said, Rav Papa said to Abaye, does that mean to say that Shmuel holds Yadayim Shein Mochichos works, and again it's by Kiddushin? Midamar le Rav Papa Hachi, from the fact that Rav Papa said that, Aliba de Shmuel, the Yadayim Shein Mochichos V'chulo, so he says this thing according to Shmuel regarding Yadayim Shein Mochichos, Mechlal it seems clear that Rav Papa would say that if it's Yadayim Mochichos, so then there would be Yad by Kiddushin. And the Gemara answers, Chada migo mai desvir leila Shmuel kamar leila Abaye. Here's what Rav Papa was actually saying. First of all, does Shmuel even hold there's a yad l'kiddushin? That also was a question to Rav Papa. And then this was the second part of his question. If you say there is a yad, does one require yadayim mochichos or not? So it wasn't that Rav Papa was admitting clearly that there is yad l'kiddushin, and he was only asking about yadayim mochichos or not. No, he was asking about the whole thing. We're just showing one element of his question, that which the Gemara quoted over there from Rav Papa to Abaye. That was just one element of a two-part question. And the Gemara continues, Boy Rav Papa. Rav Papa asked the following question, Yesh yad lepeya o ein yad lepeya. Is there yad for peya or is there no yad for peya? And the Gemara explains, Heichi Dami, what exactly is the case? If the case is that the person says, this particular patch should be peya is usually the edge of the field that is left off for the poor, so the person designates a particular patch for peya. V'hadin nami, and then he points to another patch and says, this patch also should be peya, and that's the question of Rav Papa, is there a yad for peya or not? Is that going to be, is that second patch going to be peya? But the Gemara again says, similar to before, Hahi Peya Mal Yossi. That would be genuine Peya. You're saying this also. It's obvious what you're saying. It's not even a yad. It's a full proclamation, full declaration that it's Peya. Kikami Boyle could go into Amar V'hadin V'lo Amar Nami. The real question is, what if he says and this, and he doesn't say the word Nami, he doesn't say the word also? What's the halacha? And so that was the question, whether there's yad lepeya or not. But the Gemara says, Michlal d'chiyamar sadakula to have a peya. One second, this whole question seems to imply that if the person would, let's say a person wants to make his whole field peya, is the halacha of peya only on the edge or a portion of your field, or can a person make his whole field peya? And this implies that a person is able to make his entire field peya. The Gemara over here is assuming that that first patch that was made peya, so that must have been a sufficient amount for peya, and therefore now you're going beyond the requisite amount, so to give more than the requisite amount of peya, that's already similar to sadakula, you're giving an entire field, and that's the implication over here, because you're adding on a patch after you've already given peya, now you're adding a second patch. That implies that if a person would want to make an entire field into peya, that would be good. And the Gemara says, yes, that is true. If a person wants to make the whole field peya, that would be fine. V'atanya, we learn like this in a brayso, minayin shemrotza lasos kol sadeu peya osa. How do we know that if a person wants to make his entire field peya, he can do that? Talmud lomar pa'as sadcha. So the pasuk says pa'as sadcha, and as the Mefarish says, Talmud lomar pa'as sadcha, klomar kula sadcha, all of your field. We darshan the pasuk to mean, even if you want to make your entire field peya, so then you are allowed to do that. And so the Gemara now clarifies still the question, Mi amrinon do we say? Kevon de iskish lekarbonos. Since peya is compared to karbonos, ma karbonos yesh lam yad af peya yesh la yad. Just like karbonos, there's a concept of yad. So too by peya, there's a concept of yad. O dilmor maybe ki iskish leval ta'acher hu de iskish. Maybe the comparison is only in terms of the halacha of the prohibition to delay. Vehecha iskish, and the Gemara says, where is this comparison? The Tanya, as we learned in a brayso, and the Mefarish over here says, Kevon de iskish lekarbonos ma karbonos yesh lan yad kidamrim masnisin. We said this already in the Mishnah about karbonos having yad. O dilma haidi iskish lebal ta'acher the koyal and nami bebal ta'acher ke carbon. All we mean to say is that peya is compared to carbon because there's a concept of bal ta'acher. If you delay giving peya, that's a prohibition, just like carbon. Aval bechia gavna de isla yad lo iskish. Maybe in terms of the halacha of yad, there is no comparison, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Zayin Amud Aleph.